And by the way, the seesaw was quite about at least 13 people jumped. That's where they jumped to their death. It's the history of that. And we mentioned Richard Mears. That's after he did some of the killings, his room 319.
Yeah.
So it's in back then, $20 a night. It was so
$20 a night. And you know what I heard about that place is that basically, like, if you're a sex offender, there are very few places that you can live because if you want to get an apartment and they see that, it's going to be tough. A lot of homes and everything are like within proximity to like schools and shit like that. So that's why a lot of the people who end up staying in those sort of hotels, which are short-term rentals or hotel fees or whatever, I think that there's like a huge percentage of people who live there. And then you also just mix in the homeless people and the drug addicts and everything. And you really end up with a pretty toxic crowd. You know?
Yeah. And now they're fixing it up somewhat. At least it's construction. We were there kind of going in there and putting a little bit of marble. I think it was marble, but we got in a bit and filmed. So, but it's such an interesting story and the spirits supposedly that go on there, but you don't want to stay there.
I mean, it's funny though, because when you think about that documentary, which for almost all of us, I think was the first time that we found out about that case, the documentary goes through all the different conspiracy theories before it lands you at the truth, including like the metal dude, who it's kind of like, they prop up this whole theory and you're starting to think like this girl got killed by some metal dude.
Right.
And then 20 minutes later, you realize like, oh, this is not it at all. This is totally debunked. And then you kind of end it with the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. It was by Ron Howard and Brian Grazer.
Yeah.
They're like this huge team. They made it. That's why I think it was so successful. Also, they made this documentary of the story of this girl, Lisa Lamb, who just was found in the water tank. So it's kind of bizarre, but I really love true crime. I just think there's always going to be crime. So it's just, crime does pay if you have a good podcast.
But do you ever have any like moral questions about making that kind of content? Because I'm sure that documentary, as much as we can all look at it objectively and say, this is an incredibly well-made piece of content. They took a story that almost none of us knew about, and they managed to make this however many part series that told the story in a very captivating and interesting way. And ultimately, presenting the world with the truth can never really be that bad of a thing. But at the same time, there is a family of that girl that I'm sure were at least somewhat displeased with this content being released. And that kind of mirrors the whole situation with Nicole, where a lot of times the pain or the horror of this young lady being killed kind of gets lost because of the whole circus surrounding it.
100%. I think I saw that in the face of the Goldmans and the Browns.
Yeah.
You see that. It's like, oh, everybody's on a show. There's nothing they can do except hopefully not watch it, because it'll just always be on, and it's always going to be related. I also think about my sister lost her son in Iraq with a suicide bombing, and every time there's a war picture,
your sister lost her life through it.
No, her son.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was. So when he died, every time I see stuff like Full Metal Jacket, if she saw any of these movies, I think of the same thought of she's got it relives that pain no matter what. So she stays away, like Saving Private Ryan. And anytime there's a horror film of someone getting decapitated or something, how do you not think of going, my God, how brutal is that? Even though it's in a fake movie, but it happened to other people in real life. I think they've got to, if they watch it, it's like they must relive it constantly. I'm sure that there's nightmares, and everybody talks about closure. I don't think closure ever really happens. Closure, of course, OJ's dead, but is there really closure because they lost a daughter and the Goldmans lost a son? So a brother.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, as far as upon OJ's death, did any new information emerge as a result? Because you would kind of think that if he had confided in anybody about the truth of that night, that might have came out around the time of his passing. Do you know of anything like that?
No, nothing of that. And I've always wondered, like, his closest friends, was AC. I don't know. I can't, everybody can speculate, but that was his brother.
Right.
That's the guy in the Bronco. What was that slow Bronco chase? It was so many hours. What was said? Was there a confession? You have a best friend, I'm sure. If you tell your best friend everything, so maybe we never heard a word from him ever again.
I mean, that's a heavy burden to carry with you, to never confide in anyone.
That's what. And by the way, AC was so close to Nicole. Like honestly, he adored her. Now, does he know everything? I don't know. Who's to say? But He was.
But so he's still alive and has never spoken publicly?
Never done it. I don't think he's ever even done an interview.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, and also Rosie Greer was the I guess the minister, or the OJ's priest, sort of. I went into jail, always talked to him, and he asked him to confide in him, so we never know because it's a sort of like attorney-client privilege. So we never heard from him either, Rosie Greer. I don't know if he's living still or not.
Wow.
But there was a thing when someone said that possibly OJ had talked to him and told him everything. Who knows? Everything's speculation, so on an opinion. So I don't know, but I think you're right. Don't you want to confess before you're going to die to someone? And maybe he's got his own. Maybe he's in hell. I don't know.
Yeah.
But who do you talk to?
It's very easy to imagine him being able to, not disclose this publicly, but you would just think, like, if you had any kind of, but then again, like, okay, if he gets in a relationship with a woman, why give her that leverage over you? You can't tell her. I mean, if you're smart at all. And that's the amazing thing about it. This is like one of the dumbest murders ever. He just took like no steps to prevent himself from being caught. How are you such a bad criminal? And then as soon as you're done the murder, you become so tight-lipped that you never put anything out there. That just seems like it doesn't align right.
I think possibly the dream team that he had convinced him and said, we can get you off this thing.
Yeah.
I also think that he got to a point where he believes his lies so much that he thought, I didn't do it. Because I think you start sociopathically, you start thinking, I didn't do it. You convince yourself that I have nothing to do with this thing. And, seeing from day one, the interviews, by the way, are brilliant, from Lang and Vanetta on the first interviews. And I got to hear some of them, and you think, oh my God, how he's saying, I'm so sorry, you guys, I'm so sorry. And they're like, what are you sorry about? And the phone call there, he never once asked about the kids. Who doesn't ask about when your wife is murdered? You don't first say, well, where are the kids? What's that? He never mentioned a thing about that.
Yeah.
He just said, I'll be down. I'll take the first flight out of Chicago or whatever. So, he never brings it up.
From your time spent with him, and being that you're older now and you're maybe better at putting together your opinion of him from a psychological perspective, do you look at him as somebody who was just so egotistical, so filled with his own hubris that he just was like a real, true, genuine psychopath that just didn't care about anybody?
Yeah,
that's
100%
what it seems
sociopath.
like.
Yeah, he's 100%. I actually had a girl who at the time came by and all that, and OJ had tennis courts and that, and she and I were hitting tennis balls, and then there's a basketball court there. And I went to the bathroom, and so later on she came up and just said, he asked me out, he's hitting on me. And I didn't care, I wasn't like attached to her, but she was a date that I had, that he's picking her up because I was nobody to him. I just had the guest house until I find another one. So yeah, he hit on there, and I said, my God, you need my girl that you're OJ in an NBC broadcast, you millions in Brentwood, and why would you want to take? And like I said, I didn't care, but I was like, any other person, it's like, you're hitting on the girl I'm with. This is kind of low class.
Yeah.
So, but I think he did that a lot. I really think that was his character. That he, what's funny is because when he had all those things going on in his life with NBC, football, Hurts, all this stuff, Naked Gun movies, he had everything. And he even spoke a little bit different. I noticed there was a change after the trial. He hung around just criminal people. His voice changed, and he became, I guess, dumbed down or something. It wasn't the same person. He kind of just became a lost soul. And I think he went just a complete dive.
It's interesting because that character sketch that you just supplied is kind of very similar to a lot of rappers that I know. And I'm not even talking about like the killer rappers who are actually like, convicted or accused of that kind of stuff, but more like these guys just get their ego pumped up to such an extreme degree that like hitting on this random person's girl, when realistically the girl that you're on a date with probably means so much more to you, even if it wasn't serious, but you're a regular guy. How many girls do you get to go on a date with in the course of a year? I mean, it's not that insane of an amount, but for him, this is literally nothing. You could be with a supermodel tomorrow if you wanted, but like that kind of thing is like the kind of thing that I do see rappers get their ego inflated to such an extent that they just cease to treat anybody like they have any humanity. Everybody is just kind of fodder. But I also get it because I see the way it is for them at shows or when people are around, is like that feeling of everybody wanting your attention. It becomes so easy for them to kind of dismiss their humanity.
Oh, right. When you start believing, when your ego takes over, you're dead. And that's the truth. And you can ask, I don't, like you said, your world is rap. I don't know. I know some, but if you're not, I'm not putting them down. I don't, but if a person is not educated and if their family life is kind of fucked up, I think you're going to be fucked up, because if you're not, first of all, educated, that life is not the same as a life of a person that grew up with loving and all that. So there's a disconnect, I think, somewhere. And I think that's why, I mean, like you said, I mean, shootings are like really easy to do for some people. I don't think they look at a life. It's gone. You're done. This life is no longer existence. It's out.
You consider yourself an empath?
Empath?
Yeah. Like you're governed by your empathy for other people. Do you feel other people's pain as opposed to like some people can't even feel
I like that term,
their own pain? I've probably got the definition of empath wrong, but yeah, 100%.